Hi guys, Hans and Franz are back with a German perspective, the Deutschen Perspektive. Today we talk again about Star Trek Picard and the current episode titled Mercy. Hans, mein Freund, nice that you are also back with us. Did you have a nice Easter?
Well, thank you, Hans, for asking. I really enjoyed a wonderful night on the Easter evening on the Nepenthe and had a succulent rabbit pizza. How about you?
I also had some fun with a bunch of bunnies.
Ja, geil. Prost, mein Freund, ne?
Prost, ja.
And now, evil gets an upgrade. This is the Sci-Fi News Video Review. With your hosts, Daniel and Jens.
Thank you so much for all the great feedback for our first ever English video review last week. It's highly appreciated. Please continue to give us feedback in the comments. Thank you. We will continue, of course, to bring you reviews for Star Trek Picard and the upcoming Strange New Worlds series and provide you with the German perspective. And if you haven't subscribed and hit the bell, I've got a warning for you. We will send the ghoul for you, and he will show no mercy! Like my good friend Hans here over here doesn't show mercy at all himself. And we'll now begin to show no mercy on the 8th episode. 8th is a very difficult word in English for a German. In German, it's acht, by the way. If you want to learn German, of course. It's acht. Here we go.
Yeah, show no mercy, like Shao Kahn said 20 years before. But this is another franchise.
Finish him.
So finish him, right? Back to Star Trek Picard, and I think we have reached the point in the second season where the previous questionable events and the weak story arc have an impact on every episode now. Even slightly better episodes are in danger of being lost in the shuffle. Picard and Guinan have been arrested by the FBI and are being interviewed by Agent Wells in some kind of basement. Last week, naive fans actually believed there might be some connection to the timeship relativity from Star Trek Voyager because of the actor. Of course, there is no connection. For such intelligent context, the writers would have to know which franchise they're actually writing for. Except for name-dropping and retro sound bites, there's not much left. But back to Agent Wells. As a boy, he has observed some Vulcans in the forest, and he's obsessed since then that aliens are doing nasty stuff on Earth. Wells and his motivations doesn't seem very authentic to me, and in the end, it's not consistent. The viewer is not shown a realistic scenario that would be believable. For example, a colleague or superior officer who basically questions the actions of Wells and puts him under pressure, threatening him with firing if he does not finally deliver. Short hints, for example, in the 3rd or 4th episode, that Picard is being watched by someone or something. Basics in storytelling. In modern Star Trek, scenes are simply presented. Only scenes whose credibility is not supported by details or an intelligent structure of various events. No, you're supposed to believe what you see, without question. Something is pulled out of the head, and here we go. Wells' actions contribute nothing to the plot. If this storyline had not been told, it would have no impact on the story. Guinan says to Wells that certain events are simply determined in larger context, that he has become the man to release her and Picard at that very moment. But that's bullshit, because we are made to understand that it's not the FBI that is interested in the two of them, it's Wells only. So without him, this situation wouldn't have been happened at all. Halfway interesting were the dialogues between Guinan and Q, through which we now have the certainty that Q's power are weakening and he's obviously dying. But I ask myself again, why don't these dialogues take place between him and Picard? Why are there no confrontations between the two? No intelligent dialogues full of blaming, moral arrogance, or the questioning the meaning of living and dying. In the end, we get nothing of what was announced to us in the first trailer, a final duel between two strong personalities. The trial never ends. That's what we were promised, and we have been, bitterly disappointed so far. Franz, what do you think of the FBI issue?
Well, Hans, I must disagree there a little bit with you. 99999! Agent Wells is in a position of power, and therefore he can affect the storyline in the upcoming episodes, so I don't see that as a total loss. And the scenes between Picard and Guinan and the FBI agent, well, have been okay in my book, but they do not extend any of the plot points that we have been presented this season. On the contrary, yet again we are introduced to a new character we should instantly care about. Yet another character with a broken past. And last week's cliffhanger had virtually no consequences. Picard and Guinan should have solved the problems they were presented with, in my opinion. Video evidence of transporter technology, a lost communicator, a bus full of free detainees. If you fell for that cliffhanger trick again, I feel sorry for you as I feel sorry for myself, since Picard did not have to do or sacrifice anything at all to get out of this predicament. And as Picard washes away decades of doubt within Agent Wells, decades of fear, decades of anger, decades of misery, with simply demonstrating a Vulcan mind meld. I find this is an impudence to all of those who really suffer from the proverbial emotional shrapnel, depression, and so on. Did you guys out there notice the bloodstains and the handcuffs shown numerous times during the interrogation scenes? Well, I did. And the notion here is that the FBI is a torturing meat grinder. And it doesn't stop there. As already seen in the 4th episode, Watcher, Star Trek Picard continues its claim that the FBI, the police, are not there to protect and serve, but in fact to punish and enslave. Hello there, Decepticons. They do not put that notion within a fictional setting like they did in the past in Star Trek, but they put it in our very time and place. And I find this very clumsy, unidimensional as a portrayal, because they do not offer any sense of hope for the future with this at all. And this has always been the core value of Star Trek. Well, but Hans, tell me, what is happening on the ship in France, in the woods?
Yeah, on the La Sirena. Yeah.
Yes.
What Rios does on board the La Sirena can also be classified as uninteresting. The wife and the child from the 21st century obviously have no problems understanding that they are on a spaceship from the future. Nothing is questioned. There are no communication problems. They happily eat cake and push this romance full of foreign shame. In TNG, the officers from the 24th century didn't know right away what a TV was. Here, they are all talking about cooking show and other nonsense, and Rios has no questions. He understands it all. I really hate the language in modern Star Trek. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. He found out that the transporters are obviously under the control of the Borg algorithm. Hadn't Seven already solved this problem in the last episode? Or how did she and Raffi get off the La Sirena? This plot is almost impossible to beat in terms of stupidity and cliches. Seven and Raffi are busy trying to find Jurati. Seven finds it hard to put herself in the Borg Queen's shoes without thinking of her painful experiences with the collective. I found these depictions good and believable because we know these things from Seven's past. It doesn't come out of nowhere like all those absurd childhood memories of Picard. Here, at least, they they tried to give the character a little more depth in a plausible way. Also, the flashback of Raffi in which she remembers Elnor contributes a little bit to understand why she is so attached to the boy. However, this explanation comes at least 5 episodes too late, in my opinion. Unfortunately, the two don't contribute much to the plot. The death of a civilian is noted quite casually. Hello, timeline. But at least they find out that the Queen likes to eat car batteries, of course, because of the lithium in the batteries. Maybe the Queen should have just beamed herself to Germany's beautiful Brandenburg.
Jawohl.
There's a brand new and nice Tesla factory.
Very nice.
Very nice factory there with enough lithium, I think. And yeah, here we still appreciate good dictators. Franz, your thoughts about Raffi, Seven, and Rios, and the beautiful Teresa?
My good Sir Hans, those kinds of comments get us cancelled on the YouTube channel.
And on Twitter, I hope.
Yes. Well, but speaking about Rios and Teresa, I have to say, finally a proper dialogue between those two. The short scene cannot make up for all the presumed history they have, of course, and we have never been shown, but it's a start in my book. And again, it's basically simply a problem of telling and not showing. Teresa, as she explains, has had a hard knock life. Wouldn't it have been great to have a dedicated episode for her and Rio's character to develop and properly fall in love? But at least Raffi and Seven get some proper things to do this week and share interesting dialogue, as Hans stated, that somewhat go beyond the usual sarcastic trailer quotes they're sharing between each other. Having Raffi confess to her manipulative nature is the first thing ever about her character I find remotely fitting in relation to her behavior. She projects her loneliness and needs the people around her, and this resonates for me strongly. But Hans, how do you feel about the whole Cory and Sung story then?
Yeah, we also come back to Cory and Adam Sung in this episode, you're right. Cory has apparently received the final cure for her genetic defect from Q.
Die Endlösung.
Die Endlösung, right? The confrontation between her and Sung, and Sung's lack of convincing Cory that he loves her and not his work behind her creation is one of the better scenes in this episode. I have no idea how this fits into the bigger picture and what Q's motivation is for sowing seeds of discord between Cory and Sung. But maybe that's another thing that's never explained to us and that never picked up on again. Where does Cory actually go now without identity, without papers, without money, and without shoes? How the sudden connection between the Queen and Sung comes about is again not explained to the viewer. She just Googled it in the crappy smartphone. That has to be enough as an explanation. Sung doesn't even ask why a woman with a tattered red dress needs access to any satellites, or why she's interested in assimilating a regiment of ex-soldiers. There are just things to do in 2024. Waste no time with inquiries, please. The promise of power, fame, and great legacy is of course enough motivation for the old white man. However, Mercy is still one of the better episodes of recent weeks, but on a very, very low level. The pacing of the story is okay, and the plot at least picks up some speed. Some dialogues were interesting, but there were again too many things that are not explained to the viewer in a believable way to really dive into the story. Wasted potential at almost every corner, especially when it comes to the confrontation between Picard and Q. And don't get me wrong, you will never watch this episode again either, or even remember it. Almost everything remains superficial and questionable, and the chances that, just like in the first season, everything will be resolved with a big bang full of nonsense are very good. So my rating for Mercy, is 2 out of 5 points. Franz, the last words are yours.
Thank you so much, Hans. But before I speak my final words, I have to talk about Cory and Sung. They both part ways, and they do this in a very bold and in a simple way. Cory escapes her white oppressor into freedom. Not really a refined way for the message, but a nice throwback to Alice in Wonderland nevertheless. We're still obsessed with alcohol and the go-to symbolism for depression, and many more lazy means of telling a story that lacks any nuance. Saufen, Junge. Dr. Sung is not being portrayed conflicted or torn. No, he simply switches to a superficial bad guy that got his toys stolen or something. Thus, the bottle of whiskey in his hands. This is really weak. And after weeks and weeks of unnecessary cliffhangers, this week finally pulls it off for me. It might interest you, yeah? It generates interest for the penultimate episode titled Hide and Seek next week, in my opinion. The pacing of this season has been so extremely bad that the past 4 episodes still seem like a bad joke to me. It really shows that the season was outlined for 6 episodes as rumored and has been stretched into 10. And my many questions from last week still remain. What the hell is this season all about? Is it about Q turning our future into a dystopian nightmare? Is it about a new beginning for the Borg, or is it about the now shattered past of our beloved Captain Jean-Luc Picard? I still feel that we should have been at this point of the tale 3 or 4 episodes ago. The producers still managed to present a story that feels both thin and overstuffed at the same time. They managed to pull that off. And the sad truth here is not a single aspect of all the storylines thrown towards me have manifested them in a meaningful way. Rios finding a father figure in Picard, it's a mere sentence in an episode. 7 of 9 being in love with Raffi Musiker is being portrayed in Marvel Universe sound bites. A last trial from Q for Picard that should involve some kind of penance, nowhere to be found. The creation of a new Borg Queen and a strong rewrite of the history of the Borg, done by a cheap stunt double running over cars, eating a bunch of car batteries, and a red dress. And I could go on there. This week's episode is still full of that meaningless banter, soundbite phrases, cheap shock value, written and produced by people who do not seem to understand or care what made the Next Generation so special to all of us. But, and it's a big but, to their credit, this episode gets the pacing, well, not right, but a lot less wrong, and manages to entertain me, at least on a certain level. The FBI is still that skull-cracking institution that has been criticized for the entire season and has no chance of redemption, and yet this episode entertains in a way. Primarily because the show has still a single character left to ruin, and you've guessed it, it's the Borg Queen. And Annie Wersching still shines bright, seems intrigued, and I personally want to know more. And therefore, I rate this episode out of the mercy of my heart with 2 out of 5 from the German perspective. Hi, wie wir in Deutschland sagen, how we say in German. Hi. This will be a tough ride to the great finale in 2 weeks. The next episode is entitled Hide and Seek, and if you do not want to hide and seek yourself, you should definitely subscribe to this channel, because we will send the ghoul for you, and he will show
no mercy.
Oh yes, he will not. Thank you so much for watching. Leave your comments in the comments section below. Where else would you leave it? And subscribe, push the bell thingy, and we're gonna see you next week for the 9th episode of Star Trek Picard, Hide and Seek. Take care, guys.
Thank you, guys. See you next week.